Tonight, we are going to talk about deliverable number 2. Last night we talked about all the intro stuff and how to navigate the course, etc. So tonight we're just moving to the deliverable. That'll be that. So you go into the course content section, straight to course project assignments. Give her a clicky. Deliverable number 2, which is writing effective HR policy. The competency associated with this one is to analyze the relationship between effective human resource strategies and organizational outcomes. And just like all the rest, the student success criteria is, boom, the grading rubric right there on the right side. We're going to go through it tonight too, just like we did last night. This little paragraph is the reminder. Make sure you're using the same publicly traded organization for all 7 deliverables this term. And your scenario for this one. You are the vice president of human resources at your publicly traded organization. The company has recently transitioned to a hybrid work model, allowing employees to work remotely as well as from the office. However, this shift has presented some challenges in terms of managing hours of work and ensuring attendance among remote workers. Hours of work and attendance. Your CEO has recognized the need for a comprehensive HR policy that addresses these challenges while also promoting flexibility and productivity. She calls you into her office and informs you that the move to the hybrid work model has been largely successful, but the organization's policies are just not up to par, especially when it comes to remote work. Managers are concerned about how to track hours and ensure that remote workers are staying productive. The CEO instructs you to develop a clear policy on hours of work and attendance that are specifically tailored for the organization's remote workforce. So here's what you're going to do. Instructions. You're going to write a draft of an HR policy that you can present to the CEO on hours of work and attendance for both on-site and remote workers at your chosen publicly traded company. The same company you'll use for all deliverables in this course. Your policy must contain the following elements, but isn't limited to them. Page count, 6 to 8 pages, not including the title page and the references page. You need an APA 7 formatted title page, APA formatted citations, and a references page, all in Microsoft Word. No PDFs, no dot pages, none of the other crazy file extensions that are out there. Microsoft Word only. And APA 7. This part is simple because I've already done it for you. Use the template that's posted in the course for this assignment, and all you got to do is fill in the blanks. Once you get your title page done, the first thing you're going to have is an introductory paragraph. The introductory paragraph is exactly that. It introduces your paper. If you just jump in and start talking about the topic without explaining, this paper is, here's what's in it, here's what you can expect to read there and find there, and this is how it will close. That's what goes into an introduction, not skipping right to the topic material. Introduce your paper. The next bullet point is an unequivocal policy statement, beginning with these words. It is the policy of. So whatever your corporation is, it is the policy of Chevrolet. It is the policy of General Electric. It is the policy of Walmart, right? That's an unequivocal statement that says this is the policy of this organization. There is a sample policy posted in the resources. Let's look below and make sure it's Oh yeah, small bill sample policy. All right, so look at the sample policy as you start working on this. What's the purpose of any policy? The purpose of any policy is to provide guidance for employees, not for supply chain people, not for the FedEx guy that delivers to the organization, not for the telephone guy that works on your equipment, etc. These are for whatever, if you use Chevrolet employees, General Electric employees, maybe more specifically, a specific unit. Maybe your corporation is General Motors, and your specific unit is Chevrolet. Um, so, and you can do that. But what's the purpose of this policy? And of course, you're going to expound on this. But the gist of any policy purpose is to provide guidance to employees that it applies to. Next is the scope of the policy. That is, who does it apply to? Does it apply to every single worker at all General Motors plants, all General Electric plants, all Walmarts, or does it apply just to the people that work in the main headquarters of Walmart in Arkansas? Does it apply to just Bay City, Michigan Chevrolet? Does it apply? Who does it apply to? That you can't just say the name of the organization. You have to say exactly who it applies to. So the scope of the policy. And then you're going to have a discussion section. You're going to conduct research. I'm so sorry for the coughing. Conduct research in the university's library. Then clearly and strongly discuss how working on site and remote in organizations has changed since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. Discuss remote working as a concept, the related challenges, etc. You absolutely must cite some supporting academic sources in this section. Strong academic sources from the university's library. The next section is clearly and strongly identify the specific hours of work and attendance for both the on-site workers and the remote workers. Include some discussion about how you're going to accommodate employees who may have some unique scheduling needs or challenges that are related to the remote work. Will there be options for flexible scheduling or alternative work arrangements? Clearly and strongly provide the procedures for employees working on both site or working in both on-site and remote modalities on how to document their hours of work and attendance. How are we going to record this? They're going to use timesheets or going to use some kind of online clock in, clock out program, something that's cloud-based. That's probably a good idea. Include communications. Wait a minute, did I get ahead of myself? No. Include communication expectations for remote workers in this section during business hours. How will employees notify their managers of their availability and deviations from their usual schedule? Working remotely affords you, as long as you get your hours in, it affords you an opportunity for doctor appointments and grocery shopping and taking kids to and from school or what other things that arise as long as you get your hours in. Talk about those things. Next, you're going to clearly and strongly provide the procedures, 1, 2, 3, 4 steps that supervisors must follow to verify and approve the hours of work and attendance for those working on site and remotely. That's why maybe a cloud-based tracking software of some sort would be helpful. Include how managers will assess the productivity of remote workers, if there's going to be performance metrics in place, and if so, how will they be evaluated? One of the things with remote workers, they got to be able to show some work product. If they can't show some work product, that tells me they're watching soap operas all day or whatever. They're not producing anything. they're living off the fat of the land and not doing anything for the organization. So we need to find out um, what are we going to do to keep them on track and productive. Identify the consequences for employees who fail to produce verifiable work products and or properly document their work hours and attendance. Your HR policy will not only address the concerns that are raised by the CEO and the managers, it will also promote a culture of trust, accountability, and flexibility within the organization. Provide attribution, of course, using credible scholarly sources in a professional document and incorporate writing standards such as proper grammar, proper spelling, proper punctuation. Of course, you have to include a references page and in-text citations of every source that appears on your references page. I have to, because that's one of those nobody ever told me things, where students will turn in a whole page of references and there are no in-text citations. If you have a reference on your references page, it must be cited in the paper or you have to take it off the references page. If it was a bibliography and as you write, you're just considering these things, then that's okay, still frowned upon. But in graduate level work in academia, you have to use a reference page, and that means you have to cite every single one of those references in the body of your paper. Again, there's the sample policy. You can get it by, I don't know if, no, that's a preview of it. These little ellipses, if you give them a click, a download will pop, and then you can download it and use it, and review it. Some of the same resources from last night, links to the library, to EBSCO, to ProQuest, and Mergent, instructions for accessing 10Ks using Mergent, and the APA guide. All helpful stuff. Let's take a look at the rubric. Again, the top row will be your final overall grade once you complete the assignment. Criterion 1, compliance and formatting. This policy's got to be 6 to 8 pages in length, not including the title page and references page. Includes an APA formatted title page, follows APA formatting guidelines throughout. On the job, if you look at that sample policy, the first page you see in the sample, that's what we typically would see on the job, some kind of page like that. It doesn't have a title page like we're using for this assignment. But because this is academia, this is a course, it's not the real world, we're writing it in APA format because you need to be able to do that too as a graduate student. All right, criterion 2, the clarity of policy elements. The policy contains a clear and strong introductory paragraph that introduces your paper, an unequivocal policy statement, a well-defined purpose and scope, and a thorough discussion section with strong citations from academic sources. Specificity of work hours and attendance policies. Your policy will clearly and strongly identify specific work hours and attendance expectations for both on-site and remote workers, and it will include accommodations for employees with unique scheduling needs for challenges related to the remote work. Maybe they need to work a midnight shift from home. It's things we need to consider. Criterion 4, documentation and supervision. Your policy clearly and strongly provides procedures for documenting the hours of work and attendance for both on-site and remote workers, as well as procedures for supervisors to verify and approve those hours of work and attendance, including assessment of remote worker productivity and performance metrics. Some kind of online cloud-based program that they can clock in and out when they're working. So supervisors can log in and check it and make sure they're working, see when they're on, see when they're not. Um, and but if you don't do that, it could easily be done via paper, email, attachments, um, simple things. Um, but we need to talk about that. What are the supervisors? What can they do to verify? What are we going to do to verify work product, et cetera? And what are the consequences for non-compliance? Policy clearly and strongly identifies the consequences for employees who fail to produce verifiable work products and or properly document their work hours and attendance, promoting accountability and a culture of trust in the organization. Remote working, totally by coincidence. Well, for all these schools, right? For every school I teach at, except for one, this is remote working, right? That's what we're doing right now. But at my full-time job, I just came off a stint of remote working for 5 weeks because I needed to be 3 hours away from my office. And my boss is very forgiving. He wasn't, like I said, I'm a C-suite guy and my boss is the CEO. And he trusts that I'm doing things, didn't want me to document anything, didn't clarify, didn't say there was any kind of a need for it, and that I would be paid on without question for the time I was off, because also I'm a salaried employee. So, but teaching this class, knowing what I know, and knowing how I preach about this particular assignment, and I couldn't do that. I created my own timesheet. I tracked every minute of that I was working, whether it was, now they may not have been, they definitely were not 10 hours straight, but maybe 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, 6 hours in the evening, some in the middle of the night when I couldn't sleep, etc. Some on weekends, some on what would have normally been my days off. So I tracked my time, and I was able also during that entire 5 weeks, I was providing a lot of work product. And my experience with this, because this has happened to me, where I've had to take extended remote sessions 3 times over the last 3 years. And I do much more work remotely. I provide 4 times the work product than I do in the office because I'm not worried about going to lunch. I'm not worried about, everybody that's strolling into my office wanting to sit and yak and that I can't get rid of. I'm not having to do other things that come along with being in the office. People are standing around talking. They sidetrack me, and then I go and get involved in the conversation. I'm not working. At home, those things don't happen. So I'm spending my entire 10 hours being productive. But I'm also incredibly appreciative of that opportunity to be able to work remotely. I heard our admin assistant say today that she's sick, and she was sick, and hanging out in the office, horribly sick, coughing and sneezing, but said she had no more PTO. And she asked the boss, can she work from home, work remotely tomorrow and the next day? Well, tomorrow she's off, but Friday and Monday, without question, he said yes. She still answers her phone. Her office phone is forwarded to her cell phone. She still works from home, and she can recuperate and get better without infecting everyone in the office, like me and the number 2 guy and everybody else in the C-suite. Workers are appreciative of those opportunities. Productivity goes up, morale goes up, worker happiness goes up, job satisfaction goes up, satisfaction with the organization goes up, which I suppose that could be construed as employee morale, and all the above. So we're going to want to talk about a lot of those things, but there needs to be consequences for them not, because you will find that person that takes advantage. They don't have any work product. They don't check in. They don't keep an activity sheet. And we struggle to prove that they're earning any money, that they're actually working. So that's going to have to be part of that policy, some consequences, discipline. All right, so now we're going to go and take a look at the template for this one. Deliverable 2, the template. Make it a little bigger because I can barely see it. Therefore, I know you can't see it. All right, so this is a perfectly formatted APA 7 title page. All you have to do is change your name, or put your name right here where it says student's name goes here. Change this date. That's going to be the date that you submit your submission, whichever submission it is. Name and date. Then follow the instructions in each section and fill it out. Every term, and I get a smile out of this because I don't know, I get a giggle out of it. Every term I preach and preach and preach that you have to use the same publicly traded organization for all 7 deliverables. And this has to be a Fortune 100 company. It should be, just to make it easy, right? But every term, someone for this assignment, and sometimes for the other assignments, uses my fictitious, made-up company known as Bob's Left-Handed Smoke Shifters. Absolutely fictitious, a name that was made up, geez, when I was a kid, right? And we were talking about another organization in our town. There's no such thing as a smoke shifter, nor is there a Bob's Left-Handed Smoke Shifters organization. That's going to be Chevrolet, General Electric, Walmart, Cisco, General Electric, all the bazillion other ones that are out there. Boeing might be a good one right now because that company is in turmoil. Alaska Airlines, another good one. Not sure if Alaska is publicly traded. So in your introduction, introduce your paper. This document presents new HR policies for Bob's Left-Handed Smoke Shifters. The author will identify the organization's current market differentiator and present a second newly identified market differentiator that could be the new focus of the organization. So what is a market differentiator? We haven't talked about that at all. A market differentiator is something, if you look in the learning module, the content module, you'll see there's a lot of discussion about competitive advantage and market differentiators. That market differentiator is that one thing that company does best that sets them ahead of their competition and helps them to outpace their competition. The reason Walmart is the #1 big box retailer in the world, right? Why? What is that reason? That's their current market differentiator. You're going to come up with a second market differentiator, something will replace that current market differentiator. You're going to discuss those things, what each one of those things are. And this section should be nearly 1 full page of narrative, and you have to include some citations of academic support. So your policy statement, it's the policy of Bob's Left-Handed Smoke Shifters 2. This should be a solid paragraph that it may include citations of academic support. The purpose, why? Why do we have this policy? Why do we need this policy? And this is, even though in that first paragraph, we're talking a little bit about market differentiators, the crux of this policy, the main point of this policy is hours of work and attendance. The scope, who does this thing apply to? Discussion, conduct your research in the library. Clearly and strongly discuss how working on-site and remote in organizations has changed since the beginning of COVID. Discuss remote working as a concept, the related challenges, and you have to cite some supporting academic sources in this section. And then in this section, what exactly are those hours of work and attendance? Specifically, 9 to 5 Monday through Friday for those working in the office. Do you want them to work 12-hour shifts? So they'll work Monday, Tuesday, be off Wednesday, Thursday, work Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then be off Monday, Tuesday, work Wednesday, Thursday, be off the weekend. It's all up to you. What hours of work and attendance do you want them to be? Attendance, I often get asked this, and sometimes I forget to address it. Attendance is also, we know what the hours of work are and what days we're supposed to be there, days and times, etc. Attendance is more of a reference to how many personal days do you get, how many vacation days, sick days, and other, national holidays. What other attendance days? Like my full-time employer provides us with 13 national holidays that we get paid for. It's pretty close to one a month. But there's a couple of months where there's 2 of them. So there's some overlap. But that's what we're talking about. Days and hours and whatever benefits of PTO or time off they get. Procedures. This section refers to the procedures the supervisors are going to follow to do their verifications. If the employee fails to produce, those are the consequences. And of course, a conclusion and a references page. All right. That said, the lecture's done for tonight, and I will take questions. If you have them, speak up. If there are none, you can just sign off, and I'll know there are none, and we'll be done. How about now? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Yes. Okay. But man, I'm not hearing you guys either. Let's see if maybe my volume's turned down. No, it's actually turned all the way up. Okay, so what I was saying is, yes, don't take the subheadings out of the templates. Use the templates as they are. All graduate work should have headings and subheadings. Those subheadings are consistent with each point that's on the rubric. If you fill in the blanks under those subheadings, you will not miss anything that's on the rubric. You will have hit all the points of the rubric that you're going to be graded on. If you take them out, then you're taking out a requirement from the rubric. So it makes no sense to do that. And that was the question. Follow the template for deliverable 2. Should we use the bolded words that separate each paragraph? Well, they're not separating each paragraph. They're separating each section that you need to address for the assignment. So yeah, leave them in there is the short answer. Don't change the templates and always use the template to get the best grade. I hear that a lot in the chat. Allison said last class never specified any of that kind of stuff. Just some, like I said last night, teaching is teaching, right? So I want to make sure I give you some tools that are going to help you be successful, not just here, but everywhere else. Those papers, those templates are in perfect APA format. So save them. You turn one into a APA template. The title page is in perfect APA 7 format, and probably nobody talks about this, but when you get to the end of your matriculation and all that's left as a graduate student is to write a capstone, a dissertation, and a applied research project, whatever the culminating document is, they're going to expect you to write that document. How notice I said expect. They're going to expect you to have a command knowledge of APA formatting, and they're going to expect you to write in the format that you see with these templates, with all the headings and the subheadings and the title page and the references page and citations. So the more you start to master that in all of these in-between assignments, when you get to the end and you have to write that major paper so you can graduate and get your degree, you'll have it down. But you got to start practicing now because it's APA formatting is a lot. And I also highly, strongly recommend that you purchase the inexpensive, whenever you get an opportunity, purchase the inexpensive electronic version of the APA manual. That way, when you're looking for how do I cite a newspaper, all you got to do is keyword search it and you'll find it in the manual, and then you can cite it exactly how it shows in the manual. There are, and I hate that this is true, but it is. There are a lot of educators who think that they know all the ins and outs of APA formatting, and it is simply not possible because the book is a half-inch thick. There's a lot of material in there. The print is very small. I know it very well, but I would never profess to state that I know all of APA. When I provide feedback related to APA, I cite the page, the paragraph, and the section number right from the manual. A lot of professors don't do that. They just say, well, this is an APA format. Maybe it is, maybe it ain't. You're going to run into those that say it ain't. Well, you can look in the manual if you have it, and you can say, hey, doc, I found this on page 3 of the manual, section 2.3, paragraph 1, that says this, and that's how I did it in my paper. They have no choice but to go look that up, and unless they're just going to disregard what you're saying. All right, back to the chat. Are we creating the info about our company, or should we find that info on the company we choose, the hours of work, etc.? No, you're making that up. This is a new policy that talks about hours of work and attendance. What else y'all got from me? All right, hearing nothing, we are done for tonight. We'll be back here live next Tuesday evening. See ya.